Get the recording started. Okay, so we are going to get started. This is the first webinar in a series that we're going to do every 2 weeks at 10 a.m. for 30 minutes only, and we're just going to focus on one aspect of the new websites so that we can kind of go through all of the differences and changes and get everyone prepared to start working on their new websites. So today we're going to focus on the news content type, the news articles. And if you're a current editor on a county site, you're probably pretty used to the news articles already, but there are some changes, not just with the way that we handle news, but also the way that the news sites are structured that might change the way that you use the news articles in the future. So with some of the changes, the hope is that you won't have to put everything in the news articles just to get them to appear in a place that makes sense for users, such as jobs. We're working on a jobs website that will allow you to post your open jobs there. And that's to come, and there are many things that we're working on to come as well. So let's just talk about the news articles. They reside on the homepage like they do on the current sites. There's a little bit of a different layout. It's pretty image focused, but overall it functions in pretty much the same way. It pulls in the most recent news articles and puts them in date order. As you can see here, you still have the ability to change dates on news articles and mark the sticky at top of list to keep things at the top. So all of that function still exists. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the content, add content news article. And we're not going to talk about the content editor today or any of those features. We're just solely going to go over the news article, as well as the new feature that we have on the websites called the embed news article, which allows you to embed news articles from other extension sites. So first, let's talk about just the normal news article. You're going to use this for time-sensitive information that you need to publish to the website. There's two options: your normal news article, where you enter all of the information yourself, and then the embed news article. So site-specific news article. We've got the title and a teaser. Just like on your old sites, the teaser is separate and it's required. This is because it appears anywhere that news is pulled in, such as the home page, the news part page, and the search results. So we want to give you control over what that teaser says. Now, realistically, you probably only need a sentence, maybe two in this field, and you can copy that from the actual article as well. Just whatever makes sense to give people a highlight of what the news article is about. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm on a local copy of a site here, so we're not messing with anything on the preview or production server. So just so you can get a feel for what this looks like. And I'm just going to enter some basic information. Also, if you haven't been on a webinar with me before, you know that you can just interrupt me whenever you want to, either unmute your mic or type something in the chat box, and I'll answer those questions. Okay, so I've got my teaser, and then if we scroll down, we've got the body field. And this is where you're going to enter the bulk of the news article information. You'll enter videos, files, images, whatever it is that you want to put in that news article body. And then underneath, we have the thumbnail image. Now, on the current sites, when you upload a thumbnail image, you are putting it on the homepage or the search results or wherever else this news article might be pulled in. But if you don't have an image within your body, it's also going to force that thumbnail into the body. Now, that's not something that the new sites do. It gives you a little bit more control over what actually shows up in your news article. So the thumbnail field that we have here is solely for the places that you're going to see the news article pulled in, like the home page, the search results, and the news page. So if you want that thumbnail in the body, you've got to put that in separately as well. I'll go ahead and open this. We're not going to talk about the library today. That will be a later discussion that we have, but it just allows you to upload one image, and it will use this anywhere that a thumbnail field is required. So as you can see underneath the thumbnail field, we have the published checked. This means that it's checked. It's going to be published as soon as I hit save. If I want to unpublish it, I just need to uncheck that published field. Now, before I save this, we're going to go over to the side here, and we're going to talk about, now I'm logged in as admin, so you won't see all of these options, and I'm just going to talk about the ones that you can see. So each news article has the ability to publish on or unpublish on specific dates and times. This allows you to set something up to be published over the weekend. If the content of the news article has date-specific or time-specific information and you want to make sure it gets unpublished after that time or date, you can set an unpublish on date. This just means you don't have to remember to go in and unpublish it later. It does it for you. So you can type in the month, date, year, and time. You can just type those in, or each one of these fields, if you click on the little icon, have a handy little picker that allow you to more easily select the date and time to publish on or unpublish on. Now, you don't have to use these. You can use one or the other or both. It totally depends on what you need. And you'll notice it has some great help text here. You can just enter a date. You don't have to enter the time if you don't want to. So the time is just, and if you need it. Next, you have the ability to control the URL of the news article. Now, this is generated automatically by default based off of the title of the news article. So if the news article title is super long and I want to make sure that it's a little easier to get to, I can uncheck this generate automatic URL alias and enter my own in the URL alias field. Now, the help text underneath is going to give you specific information about how this needs to be written. For example, it's got to have that forward trailing slash, which is different from the current sites that you're on. Before you just entered the actual URL, you didn't have to have that forward trailing slash, but you do now. So you've got to enter that, excuse me, and then you can enter the URL after that. No spaces, of course, dashes or underscores or just all one word entered into this field. Now, news articles, like I said, the URL is set by the title of the news article. So what happens when you change the title? Well, the URL gets changed too. However, on the news sites, we do have something in place that sets up an automatic redirect. So anytime that URL of the news article gets changed, whether that's because you go in and change it or because the title has been changed and it changes that URL, it's going to set up an automatic redirect. So you don't have to worry about whether you're linking to it somewhere and you've just broken the link. You don't have to worry about that at all. It will just set up the redirect for you. You don't have to do anything for that to happen. Next, you have the ability to change the authoring information. Theoretically, there's probably no real reason to change the authored by unless you want to. It's not going to affect anything one way or the other. But the authored on date and or time could be very beneficial. There's a lot of counties that have recurring news articles every year. And so once it's passed, they'll unpublish. And then the next year, instead of writing an entirely new news article, they'll just go back to this one, publish it again, and make any necessary changes, which is perfect. However, because our news articles are shown in date order, if we don't change that authored on date, it's not going to appear at the top of the news article list. So we've got to change that date to reflect the current date that we're on so that it shows up at the top of the list. So again, you can just type in and edit this yourself, or you can use the icon in the field and use the date picker. Same with time here as well. And then like normal, you have the sticky at top of list option, which means that regardless of the authored on date, it is going to stay at the top of the news article list until you uncheck this. Now, you don't need to check this for every single thing. You only need to check it if you want it to stay at the top, regardless of whether you publish new news articles or not. So the actual use case of the news article and the way that you do it is pretty much the same on the news sites. What's different is the embed news article feature. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you what that's like. Again, I'm just still on the news article, and there is this lovely little blue link here that says embed news article. And when I click on that, it's going to give me 2 additional fields, and they are URL of source news article and local information about this article. So what this allows us to do is, instead of copying and pasting news from other sources, we can just use the URL of the news article. Now, this has to be confined to extension websites. If you try to input something from CNN, it's not going to work. But you can use this from other county sites, the extension news site, program area sites like Home Hort News or Integrated Crop Management, any of those that use news articles. You can just go ahead and use the URL of that article to embed it on your site. This helps in several different ways. One is that we actually get penalized for the amount of times that we copy and paste on our sites. So that means that search engines like Google actually penalize us because we have a lot of duplicated content. So the way that we're doing this means that, as far as Google can tell, we are not duplicating the content. It still exists only in one place. So that helps our search engine optimization, which means we appear higher in search results because we're not being penalized for that anymore. The other benefit to doing it this way is that anytime there is an update or change made on the original article, it's also getting made on your site without you doing anything. So it's automatically updating any information. So I've got the extension news site pulled up, and I'm just going to show you how this works. I'm just going to take this top one here, the cover crop field day. And this is a little bit of copy and paste, but it's a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy the title. And I'm going to go back to my news article that I have open, and I'm going to paste it into the title of my news article. Now I'm back on the news site, and I'm looking for something that I can use as a teaser. And I think that I just really want this first sentence here. It makes sense to me. That's what the public is going to want to know about this news article. So I'm going to paste that in. It's 2 sentences. Now I'm going back to the extension news article. There's a little bit of back and forth. And I'm going to copy the URL. And I'm going back, and I'm going to paste that into the URL of source news article. Now, I can be done at this point. I can just hit save. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to remove all of this stuff, and I'm just going to hit save. So all I've done is copy and paste something into the title, the teaser, and then the URL. And as you can see, now the entire news article has pulled in. Images, everything. It's all here. And this is fine. I can leave it just like this. Or I can go back and we can use some of the other fields. So local information about this article. Sometimes we're sharing news articles from sites. Let's just say, for instance, we're sharing this cover crop field day to be held near Nashua, probably saying that wrong. I might want to share when our cover crop field day is going to be. So I'm just going to say that it's going to be on Thursday. And I'm going to go ahead and save this so that you can see where this local information shows up. I'm definitely not suggesting that you share a news article of another county on yours, but as you can see, the local information shows up above the news article. So it's going to prioritize anything that's local that you input into that field. So again, I can just stop here, or I'm going to go back and edit. The other thing that you can do is that thumbnail. It's yanking in any file, image, video that's being used on the original article, but it's not putting anything in that thumbnail field. So I know that this news article is going to pull into the homepage, and it's kind of image based, and I want it to look right. So I'm going to go back to the news article, and I'm going to just save this image, right clicking and save the image as that it's using. Just going to save that. Going back to my news article. And I'm going to go ahead and upload. Man, my computer is a little slow today. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and upload that image. And there we go. So now when I save this news article, I've got the title, my local information, the entire news article is pulled in. And again, anytime this gets updated on the news site, it's going to get updated on my website without me doing anything. I'm going to go back to the homepage so that we can see what this looks like when it pulls in. And it's because it's the most recent one that I've added. It's right here at the beginning. There's the thumbnail that I just entered, uploaded, title that links to my article, and then the teaser field that I put in. So those are the two ways that you can utilize news on the New County websites. Now, I know we didn't go through any of the media library stuff or the content editor. We will go through that in a later webinar because it does take a bit of time to go through all of those things and talk about them. But one of the main things that we've done with the new websites is to try to utilize information that already exists in our system and make it easier for you to use that on the new websites, which not only means that we're sharing information that we already have within the organization, but also it allows you to keep things more updated without a ton of extra time involved. So, does anyone have any questions about the news article, the new websites, anything? Definitely feel free to unmute or use the chat box if you'd like. Okay. We'll have this webinar again in 2 weeks at 10 a.m. And the next thing that we will be talking about, let me look at my list so we can talk about the next. We'll be talking about the content editor next. So if you want to learn about all the new features of the content editor, definitely come join us on November 2nd at 10 a.m. I'll send out an email for sure to remind you and put something in the Microsoft Teams channel. Also, don't forget there's a webinar tomorrow on Site Improve talking about image alternate text, adding image alternate text to images. Okay, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, everyone. Have a good day.